Welcome back to Real Talk. This is the holiday edition, the holiday hustle. Awesome.
Let's hustle through it.
Hustle through it. What does that mean? Where does that come from?
I don't know. I'm hustling a lot lately. I feel like
That's
I'm
good.
running from one thing to the next. How about you?
Same thing. We're just everywhere all the time. So what are you seeing right now? This market's a little bit crazy. We always say that around the holidays it gets a little bit crazy. I think the news even says it gets a little bit slow.
I feel like, I don't know if the news says it, but I definitely know that clients say it. Oh,
Yes.
well, it's a bad time to list because nobody's shopping, or there won't be anything to look at. Nobody wants to sell their house during the holidays. I feel like people do want to sell their houses during the holidays.
They want their
And
new
usually they're serious when they're selling or buying right now. So the chances of a showing turning into an offer are much higher than in the spring when you might have 10 showings and, you know, they're just looky-loos. If you're out the week of Thanksgiving looking at houses and not making pies, you're probably more serious about buying. It's my feeling. What do you think?
I agree with you, especially if they're giving them some of that time with their family. Like for me personally, I'm happy to go do a showing on Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? Anything like that. Like I'm going to be there for you because usually people, when they're doing that, they're usually motivated by some other external cause.
Right.
Unless it just happened to be the perfect house. They're like, we need to go see this one right now.
Absolutely.
But maybe it's for a job. Maybe it's something they think that they're going to get a better deal right now because things are a little bit slower.
Maybe their lease is ending and they have to find a place to live. There are so many reasons. I'm also finding that I had, just as one realtor in this area, I had 4 people tell me in October that they wanted to put it on hold until after, you know, that thing that happened in November.
Oh, we're bringing in the politics. This is good.
I'm not going to talk politics, but not everybody, but there were
Yes.
legitimately 4 people who had been shopping with me. And then as we got closer to that election, they were like, you know what, we're just going to wait. We think interest rates will go down. We think this, we think that. We want to wait and see who gets elected. We want to wait for the rates to drop. Been hearing that for 2 years now.
Yeah.
So, you know, we waited and the election is over. And I feel like a lot of people are going, I still really need to find a house.
Yep.
Maybe that wasn't great to wait as long as we did, or maybe it worked for them and they weren't in a rush, but they're definitely ready now.
That's good, because I could also see people making the argument that they're going to wait until the next office takes place too.
Yes.
But I had seller last night actually call me and say, hey, like, I think because of the election, this too. So even the sellers are thinking about it too.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's good that they're trying to think of those things, right, from the outside perspective.
Right.
But I think that now that we're going into December, November's kind of going over. I think especially in the next kind of 1 to 2 weeks after the holiday, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we're going to see a big boom of people just trying to like lock their property under contract.
I think so too. And in addition to that, you know, we are always trying to improve what we know and the information we can provide, not just on the podcast, because we are very new to podcasts. So we might be great realtors, but give us a little break on how we perform here.
Yes.
However, we do always try to know what our market looks like. And what I keep hearing is that Cincinnati, and so if you're from Northern Kentucky, you know our airport is the Cincinnati airport. I will always figure that my cities are Cincinnati. We're adjacent and kind of run in the same circles as far as affordability, job growth. And what I learned today is that the earnings continue to rise, and we're 4th on a list for affordability for investors. So not necessarily if you're looking for a house as a first-time buyer, it wasn't about that. It was about, should investors be looking here? And part of why I watched those things is that my first year of real estate, I happened along 3 clients who are serious investors. They're all very different. They all look for different things. I've worked with a few others since then, but I try to keep tabs on what investments look like here. And what I'm seeing is that the investors who kind of sat out for the last 6 months and I was having to work with everybody else and my like normal people were gone. They're back and wanting to find things. And it's because like those prices, they haven't dropped the way a lot of people were saying they dropped, but we're stabilizing, I think. We're not seeing huge increases. We're seeing slight increases, which as a new realtor, I said, I think that's what's going to happen as these rates go up. We're not going to drop because people still need houses and there's still no inventory. And hello, I took, what was it, 4th grade supply and demand classes.
Oh, there you go.
Taught them even. But yeah, we're not seeing it drop out, but we are seeing it stabilize, and some of the investors are getting a little more comfortable with where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say it before. Cincinnati is like the little Hollywood, right? We have all the cool buildings. It's a happening place to be. We have all the sports teams. We're huge in the arts. We have all the history. There's a lot of things to love about the Cincinnati area.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, like you hit on it, for what our cost of living is here, we get pretty high salaries, especially I think like healthcare workers. I think like the P&G of it all. Like we got some major hubs that are happening in this area.
Yes.
So yeah, it makes total sense if an investor is thinking about where should they plant their seed next. Cincinnati, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Even when they were talking about it, the top 3 cities that they were recommending, they even said like you have to be the perfect investor for those places because they're still really expensive. They were talking about Phoenix and Colorado Springs and how if you're going to invest there, you either need to be doing a BRRRR, which we won't talk about, but you need to be really, really serious about investing, or like even renting out by the room, where Cincinnati, I have seen the cash flow potential in Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati, and it's good for investors.
100%. Even I would say if you're even thinking about becoming a new investor, you've never done it before, you're probably going to still make a couple mistakes on your first several investments, but at least it's a safer bet here in Cincinnati than going to one of those other places.
Yeah. Even if you get into where, I mean, I know I did my first investment property this past year, and I won't say we're completely in over our head, but I was able to find a place where we could use it in several different ways. So where we're making money on one and spending money on another, it's still all working out to where we're still cash flowing and able to not feel like I did a terrible job for myself. Done better for my friend investors, but so there's that. But I also think that it's still a really good market for those first timers. I think it's great for move up buyers right now.
Oh, 100%. Yes, absolutely.
And everybody always talks about how nobody wants to move during the holidays. Do you find that to be true?
People say that. I don't think that that's true. I've even had some of my best years during the holiday season.
Yeah, my last quarter has always been my best quarter.
Really?
So it's usually first and last. And if you think about that, they really coincide.
Right.
So we start September, October. For me, not everybody. I know some people love that spring and summer. For me, that's a little lackluster. I really like hitting all those super positive, serious buyers and sellers that happen in the winter time and take it through to March. That's what I found. I've had several people have to pack up during the holidays. Actually have a domino deal right now.
What is a domino deal, Lena?
So when people have to sell their home in order to buy the next home, I refer to it as domino. You'll hear other realtors call it a contingency. Yes. It means that they have to get their home under contract and sold in order to close on the one that they're buying. I right now have one where it's 3. So 3 homes must close for everyone to move to where they want to be.
And what happens if one of those houses doesn't close?
We're not going to talk about it because they're all closing. It's all actually moving quite seamlessly right now. No jinxing.
So hypothetically, not Lena's deal. If one of those were to not close somewhere in the chain, then generally the rest of the chain is kaput as well.
Yes. So if that first deal closes and she can buy the next one, that gets a little tricky, right? Because hers is already sold. She needs somewhere to move. So you want to make sure you have a good realtor on your team for deals like this and can work through all the things and negotiate where necessary, because something is going to come up. I mean, we had inspections and had to work through some things there, but luckily both of my clients in these 3 deals are working very well together, and everybody is on track. I don't know if they're loving packing this week.
Right now,
I have one who has a family coming in, and she's already started packing. And I know it's stressful, but she just keeps looking at the end goal and like, that's where I want to be. That's where I want to raise my family. We're going to make this work, and couldn't ask for better.
I think you just told me off camera a really endearing story, I feel like.
Yes.
So it was a mom, and she's always done Thanksgiving, and she's done it for years and years. She's like, oh, I just won't do it this year. And then, who was it? The kids that said...
The kids were like, no, we have to have Thanksgiving in our house. It's the last year of this house. You can't not have Thanksgiving. So they set up folding tables and chairs, and everything was moved out because we literally closed the week after Thanksgiving, and they had immediate occupancy from the people who were buying their homes. So they had to be packed, and they had years and years, decades and decades of things to pack. So yeah, folding table and chairs for Thanksgiving.
But that's a memory, though.
It's a memory.
They're going to go back and think about that Thanksgiving. They're like, remember that time that we had folding tables?
Absolutely.
We had to, like, eat on the floor and everything?
Yeah. So the holidays, you know, you can just make it more special.
That's right. That's a good twist.
Yes, it might be stressful, even chaotic, but it works.
What would be some of your tips for someone who's considering selling their house during this kind of November, December season?
My tip for especially showing is you've got to be willing to be flexible, because you realize that people are going to want to look when they have time off. That's going to be time off where you might be spending it with your family. You're going to have to be flexible and be willing to allow the showings. And you're also probably not going to want your house to look like Christmas blew up, because you want them to see past your decorations. So as hard as it might be on Christmas to go minimalist, I think if there's too much, it's really hard to get a feel of the house. And sometimes I know my house during Christmas feels smaller because I bring it all out, and it might be a lot for buyers to look at it.
I think things like the cozy scents, those are good.
Yes, absolutely.
Baking cookies, fantastic, especially if an open house. I always tell my sellers, bake the cookies, especially if you're a good chef, don't burn the cookies. Things like little things that make it look cozy, like things on counters, like a well-decorated vase, something like that, right? Like the cranberries maybe sticking out or something.
And I'm not saying don't put up a tree or celebrate your holiday the way you would celebrate, but just maybe minimalist that year.
Because also people, I mean, you hit on like your holiday, because buyers might be coming in that celebrate a different holiday too.
Absolutely.
So being mindful of that stuff as well. So, but no, I don't even say, what if it's a vacant house? Are there any tips for that one? I think immediately freezing pipes.
Well, yes, freezing pipes. So, I don't recommend turning water off.
Neither do I. I had a seller actually call and ask me yesterday, like, yeah, we haven't been in there. Like, should we turn the water? I'm like, no, it snowed literally last week. Let's just, plus also if you're doing showings, people are going to be coming through your house. They probably want to see the water on anyways.
That's my thing is I have a gentleman who works with me a lot. And if you're watching, I'm not criticizing you, but he will turn off the water a lot. And I get a question every single showing. Why is the water off? Are the pipes broken? What's wrong? Does the water heater not work? Does it like it causes those questions. So my tip would be leave the heat on and the water on, and run by occasionally, or if you're out of town, ask your realtor or a friend or a neighbor to go check. But we want to keep it seamless for those showings. We want people to see things in working order and not have a million questions.
Plus, I think it helps them create the vision of, oh, this is what it's going to be like to live in this house. Like you mentioned heat. I was in an open house this previous weekend. I did multiple open houses, and this one house was so cold. They just didn't want it. And
it feels cold when you walk in, and you don't immediately feel at home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it starts those questions. Well, is the furnace okay?
Right.
Especially this is an older home. They're like, is it all right? Is this just how it always is?
Yes.
You know? Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. It's just, it's better to let people feel homey. I like, if I have a vacant house that I'm listing, I will go in. I don't usually spend the money on staging. It depends on the house and the neighborhood. But no matter what, you need something that feels cozy. So I'll do things like towels, rugs, a couple little kitchen decor things, just enough to make it feel like, oh, I could do this or I could do that. A little sign, a little candle, whatever. But it needs something. And heat is probably the most important thing that they need, because walking into a vacant home that is freezing cold makes it feel like a vacant home that will stay vacant. We want it to feel like somebody's home.
I like that. I like that. What about buyers in this market? Someone even thinking about writing an offer, what kind of leverage do you think that they have right now?
I mean, it's definitely a serious seller who is listing right now. So I'm not going to say go in and lowball somebody, but definitely check the comps. If they're at a reasonable place and lined up with all the comps around them, go in with a reasonable offer. But are they likely to be willing to negotiate with you? Yes. I mean, and it could be things like possession. It could be closing costs. It doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm going to knock them down $20,000 because they must need to sell if they're showing their house on Christmas Eve. But yeah, I think they're serious, or it wouldn't be on the market at this point.
I think, like you said, they'd be willing to negotiate. So things to possibly consider. So you said closing costs, title insurance, home warranties, especially going into the winter months with all the different systems. Home warranty is not a terrible thing. It's not super expensive.
Right.
You probably could buy it on your own if you're buying a house, but not a bad thing to ask for either.
Absolutely.
Or as your seller offering those things, not a bad incentive to draw more buyers in either.
Yes. And even if it's not about the cost of the home warranty, it makes them feel a little warmer and fuzzier about things working. Like, oh, you're offering a warranty, so you must feel like everything's in good working order. Or, you know, if something does happen, we have some leverage and won't have to take on that cost ourselves. So it's always a good thing to see offered.
Of course.
Yeah.
What other fun things you got for the holidays, Lena?
Well, I am hoping to go home and cook, but I also hoped to go to the grocery store yesterday and got so busy I never made it there. I did a Kroger delivery, got there at 10 o'clock last night, put groceries away, went to bed. I might make a couple pies today. I might go show houses. Who knows? Well, pecan pie, and honestly, I call it pie, but pumpkin roll.
Is it pecan or pecan?
Pecan.
Pecan. Okay.
I don't know what country those people come from. Pecan.
It's weird. When I talk about it in a pie, I'm like, it's a pecan pie. But if you ask me, I'm like, oh, that's a pecan.
Really?
Yeah, it's really weird.
Not me. I can't say. It sounds weird.
Yeah, no. Me and Steve, we got our shopping done in Kroger this weekend. We actually ran into one of his buddies, Uzzi's. He's a manager there. So my, in and out Kroger trip turned into like a 2-hour adventure.
Is it ever really in and out this week of the year, though?
No, and I wasn't even thinking about it that way. We were really just trying to grab and go. We weren't even thinking Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But, no, always good to see Uzzi, and he's supportive of my Steve and all those things. So I'm like, oh, yeah, we're going to have this conversation. It's always good. But, what traditions do you do for the holidays?
There's a lot of food involved in our family. So
that's good.
Our traditions are ever evolving. We're a blended family, 7 kids. 4 of them are sort of adult. Well, 5 now are adults.
There you go.
Yeah, so we're always evolving and changing, trying to include everyone and figure out schedules and
that's the hard part. That's the hardest part.
Yes.
Like I was telling Debbie earlier, our sales manager, that so I'm going to Steve's house this year, but they decided that my family and his family were going to do it at the same time. And then so ultimately, one year we did end up missing his mom, so we're going to his mom's this year. My grandma does an ornament party, so I'll see her on December 7th, so that'll be fun.
Nice.
Just a bunch of ladies and exchanging ornaments. It's just good. Get it out. So I'll still see her literally like next week, so that'll be good. And then we go back to my parents' house afterwards for a little like beverage, board game, that whole thing. Yeah, so that'll be good.
That's a good tradition.
So here's the thing, too, with real estate agents. We still have time to do all these things. We make the time. We're there for our families, too. We don't miss out on those things, but we'll make time for you as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing.
I think especially on like the traditional holiday times, we're probably not out and about showing because who's going to let you in their house on Thanksgiving evening? They're celebrating too. But do we get phone calls? Do we get offers that day? Do we do all those things? I'm working. I don't think there's been a holiday or a vacation since I started this that I didn't work part of the time. But our work does look a lot different. We can handle it in a few minutes and go do whatever we need to do. It's not like we're having to run to the office and work for 4 hours and go home. We can do things and be with our family and go finish more things. It's all possible.
And I wouldn't trade this career for the world, if I'm being honest. I would never go back to the 9 to 5 to have the full day off and then get the blues and have to go back on Monday. I would not trade this for the world.
The only thing I would change is doing it sooner. And I loved teaching. But what I found was our year was a countdown to everything. We were counting down to the next 3-day weekend. We were counting down to spring break. We were counting down to winter break. We were counting down to summer. I don't count down to anything anymore. I just enjoy every day, which is fabulous.
Yeah, I like it. I think that's where we got off. I think that's good.
All righty.